They didn't expect him to stand tall. They didn't expect his silence to speak louder than their insults. And they definitely didn't expect the entire bus, and soon the whole city, to take his side. You see, this story didn't begin with a shout. It began with a stare. The early morning bus was running as usual, quiet hum of the engine, soft rattle of coins dropping into the fare box. People getting to work, heads buried in their phones, minds half asleep. But the moment he stepped in, the passenger with the smug face, the one who believed the world owed him something shifted. He didn't say good morning. He didn't make eye contact. He simply threw his bag on the seat next to him like he owned the place, walked past everyone, and pretended the bus driver, a tall, middle-aged black man named Marvin, didn't exist. Now, Marvin had been driving that route for nearly 12 years. He'd seen it all, the joyful, the tired, the rude, the reckless. But something about this man's energy was different. Not just rude, disrespectful. Still, Marvin kept his cool. He always did. But things escalated fast. This passenger, let's call him Greg, wasn't content just sitting in silence. No, he started to complain, loudly. Why is the bus late again? Figures. These drivers never care. His voice cut through the calm like a knife. A few passengers looked up, uncomfortable. Greg didn't stop. You guys should learn how to work properly. Paid for nothing. The racial undertone? Not even subtle. He was aiming to provoke. Marvin? He didn't flinch. He looked at the rearview mirror, caught Greg's eyes, and calmly responded. Sir, I follow the route. If you have concerns, you can report them. But I won't accept being disrespected. Greg scoffed. You won't accept? What are you going to do, hon? Then it happened. Greg stood up and walked to the front, standing just behind the yellow line, close to Marvin's driver's seat. Too close. His voice raised. You people think you're above it all, but you work for us. You hear me? The bus fell silent. An elderly woman on the second row put her hand over her mouth. Marvin, steady and composed, reached for the emergency button. He didn't touch Greg. He didn't yell. He said, Please sit down. You're making this unsafe for everyone. Greg barked. Unsafe? You're making it unsafe just by being here. And then, silence. But not for Marvin. From the back of the bus, a teenager stood up. Then another. A middle-aged man in a business suit slowly walked toward the front. He said calmly but firmly, Enough. Greg turned, surprised. We heard everything, the man continued. And you don't speak for us. Then the elderly woman from earlier stood up too. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. Son, I've been taking this bus for over 20 years, and I've seen this driver treat every person with kindness. Every single day, rain or shine. You're a stranger who walked in full of hate. Greg looked around, and for the first time, he realized no one was on his side. Phones were recording. People were standing. And Marvin? He sat quietly, hands on the wheel, tears quietly forming in his eyes. Not because he was broken, but because, finally, he didn't have to fight this one alone. Police were called. Greg was escorted off the bus. He tried to argue, saying freedom of speech, claiming he was just expressing opinions. But when the video surfaced, it went viral. Not because it was shocking, but because it was common. Too common. But this time, someone stood up. Everyone stood up. And that's when the second wave hit. Marvin's story got picked up by local news. Then national news. He was invited to speak on morning talk shows. Donations poured in from across the country. One letter read, Dear Marvin, I saw your story. My son is 10, and I showed him how you handled hate with strength. You've taught him more than 100 books could. Thank you. And perhaps the most beautiful moment? The City Transportation Department gave Marvin an award, not just for professional conduct, but for moral courage. They renamed a section of his route the Marvin Strong Line. And that rude man who tried to tear him down? He disappeared into silence. But Marvin? He drove on, stronger than ever, head held high. Because that's what real dignity looks like. And no hate can ever outrun the grace of a steady soul. The days that followed were nothing short of extraordinary. Marvin had always been known among the regular passengers as the quiet hero. The kind who noticed if someone looked sick. The kind who waited a few seconds longer if he saw someone running for the bus. The kind who remembered names noticed when someone had a bad day, and asked, gently, if they were okay. But now, the whole city was seeing him for who he really was, a symbol of patience, integrity, and unshakable grace. It wasn't just news headlines anymore. Churches invited him to speak. Schools asked him to visit and share his experience with students. In every room, people wanted to understand one thing. How did you stay so calm? And Marvin would always smile, pause, and say, because I knew who I was, and I refused to let his words define me. But what touched people even more than his answers were his questions. He'd look at those students and ask, what would you do if someone tried to make you feel small in front of everyone? Would you rise above it, or give them the reaction they wanted? It made them think deeply. You see, Marvin didn't just respond to hate with silence. He responded with powerful presence. And that, my friend, is something most people aren't trained for. Let me tell you about something few people know. A week after the incident, a woman approached Marvin at a local cafe. She was hesitant, nervous, holding her coffee like a shield. She whispered, "Do you remember me?" Marvin looked at her carefully, then nodded. She was one of the passengers who had been sitting quietly that day, near the front, frozen as the event unfolded. Tears filled her eyes. She said, "I wanted to say something. I just couldn't. I was scared. But I've thought about that day every night since. And I wanted to tell you, your courage gave me courage. I won't stay silent next time." Marvin didn't judge her. He didn't say, "You should have spoken." He just held her hand and said, "Then something good already came from that day." That's the kind of man he is. And yet, the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, the transportation company released internal footage from a bus, high-quality, front-facing camera views, and something was discovered. Something Marvin hadn't even realized. Right before Greg, the disrespectful passenger, began shouting, he had recorded himself, on his phone, facing the camera, smiling. He said, "Watch me go viral today. Let's see how mad I can make this guy." It wasn't just an outburst. It was a setup. He was hoping Marvin would react aggressively, that he'd get angry, maybe raise his voice, maybe lose his job. It was a trap, but it failed, because Marvin didn't fall into it. Instead of going viral for drama, Greg became famous for his hate. And Marvin, he became a symbol of how to win without shouting. This revelation made people even angrier. And yet, Marvin still didn't gloat. He didn't make fun of Greg. He didn't post on social media. He just kept showing up, driving his route, smiling at passengers, living his life. But he did make one quiet change. He started carrying a small notebook. In it, he began writing short notes about people he encountered on his bus. Not the hateful ones, the kind ones, the patient ones, the ones who offer their seats, the ones who helped mothers with strollers, the ones who smiled and said, "Thank you." Every night before bed, Marvin would read a few pages and remind himself that the world still had good people, that for every Greg, there were 10 silent heroes just trying to get through the day with kindness. And then, one day, the unexpected happened. Greg reached out. No cameras, no press, no apology tour, just a handwritten letter. It said, "You don't know me, but I'm the man who tried to humiliate you. You didn't respond the way I expected, and I lost everything. My job, my reputation, my peace. But your calm, it forced me to see myself for who I've become. I just wanted you to know, I'm in therapy. I'm trying to change. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm thankful you didn't hate me back." Marvin read the letter, then folded it carefully. He didn't reply. He didn't need to, because that wasn't his fight anymore. This wasn't about Greg. This was about showing the world what dignity looks like when it's tested. This was about teaching people that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strength under control. And more importantly, it was a reminder that no matter how the world tries to bait you into anger, you can choose grace. You can choose to be bigger, calmer, brighter. And when you do, even in the face of cruelty, the universe notices. The moment Marvin chose grace, something began to shift, not just in the people around him, but in the spiritual realm as well. You see, when you respond with love in a moment where hate is expected, you invite divine favor into your life. It's almost as if heaven leans a little closer and says, That one, that one is walking in wisdom. And that's exactly what started happening. Doors opened for Marvin that he hadn't even knocked on. First came an invitation from the city council. They wanted to honor him with a community leadership award. Not because he was loud, not because he fought back, but because he didn't. Because he represented something we so often forget in our fast, reactive world. The power of restraint, the strength of character, the miracle of not matching energy. Then came a phone call from a local university. They were hosting a symposium on conflict resolution and public service. They wanted Marvin to sit on the panel, not as an expert in theory, but as a living example of what it looks like to de-escalate in real time. Imagine that. A humble bus driver, now speaking alongside professors, psychologists, and public figures. At first, Marvin hesitated. He told them, "I'm not a speaker. I just drive a bus." But the organizer smiled and replied, "Sir, that's exactly why we need you. You live the lesson, and that speaks louder than any book." And so Marvin went. He told his story in the simplest words. No big phrases, no rehearsed lines, just honesty. And that honesty, it hit people in the soul. One student stood up and said, "I've been angry all my life. This showed me another way." Another attendee later messaged him on social media. "I was about to quit my job because I felt like the world kept disrespecting me. Then I saw what you did, and I realized dignity isn't given, it's chosen." Marvin started getting letters. Hundreds. From people he didn't know. Teachers saying his story changed how they talk to students. Parents saying they shared it with their kids. Even prison inmates saying it reminded them that self-control is the first step to freedom. And that's when Marvin realized this was never about a viral video. This was about planting seeds. Seeds of hope. Seeds of healing. Seeds of restoration in a world that had forgotten what patience looked like. But the most beautiful moment came from a place no one expected. One morning, as Marvin pulled up to his usual stop, he noticed a familiar figure standing there. It was a young man, probably 17 or 18, head down, holding something in his hands. Nervous, Marvin opened the doors. The young man stepped up, looked him in the eye, and said, "My dad was Greg. He passed away last month. I found your story online. I found the letter he wrote you. I just wanted you to know I saw what kind of man he could have been because of you, and I want to be better. I don't want to repeat his story." He handed Marvin a small keychain. It had 2 words on it. "Stay kind." That was it. No logo, no brand, just a simple reminder. And Marvin? He clipped it to his bus keys that very day. From that moment on, every time he turned the ignition, that little keychain would swing. And with every mile he drove, it whispered a truth that had now been carved into the very foundation of his life. Kindness never goes unseen. Grace is never wasted. And sometimes, the biggest battles are won without a single word. Marvin didn't become rich. He didn't start a business. He didn't run for office. But he did something far more powerful. He shifted culture. One person, one ride, one quiet act of self-control at a time. And here's the thing. You might not be a bus driver. You might not ever have a moment caught on camera. You might never go viral. But you'll be tested. Someone, somewhere, will try to drag you down to their level. They'll poke, push, provoke. And when that moment comes, remember Marvin. Remember that even when the whole world expects fire, you can show them light. You can choose stillness in a storm. You can walk away from chaos without carrying its energy. And when you do, you don't just protect your peace, you protect your purpose. Because sometimes the way you respond in the worst moment of your life becomes the doorway to the best chapter of your story. There's something deeply spiritual about how life responds when we pass the test of character. Marvin may have just seen it as doing the right thing, but in heaven, it looked like obedience to divine instruction. He didn't just avoid conflict. He walked in the fruit of the Spirit, patience, gentleness, self-control. And when a person walks in the Spirit, even storms begin to serve them. The viral video, the invitations, the community respect, they weren't just rewards. They were confirmations. Confirmations that God sees you when no one else does. That your quiet, yes to goodness echoes louder than any scream. that how you carry yourself in adversity can rewrite generations. And that's what happened with Greg's son. You see, what Marvin did on that bus, it didn't just make a passenger rethink his behavior. It shifted something ancestral. Greg's son made a different choice because Marvin held the line, because Marvin broke the cycle. That's legacy, not wealth, not fame, but character passed down like an inheritance. And that inheritance doesn't come from talking about values. It comes from living them, especially when no one's applauding. Friend, let this story remind you. There are eyes watching you that you may never meet. There are hearts being healed by the way you choose not to retaliate. There are people deciding who they'll become just by seeing how you behave when wronged. You might think, but I'm not perfect. Good. Neither was Marvin. Neither is anyone. But what set Marvin apart is that he chose presence over pride. He chose calm over chaos. He didn't let the insult define him. And because of that, he redefined the situation. And in doing so, Marvin became more than a man. He became a message. Now, maybe today you're facing your own version of that moment. Maybe someone's provoking you, gossiping about you, underestimating you. Maybe you're tempted to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, to show them they messed with the wrong one. But before you act, take a breath and ask yourself, will this reaction create healing or just add to the noise? Is this response coming from my spirit or from my ego? What would it look like to win without fighting? The world tells us that strength is loud, that real power is found in snapping back, clapping back, burning bridges. But heaven tells a different story. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Matthew 5, verse 9. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12, verse 21. These aren't just verses. They're weapons for your soul. Weapons that don't destroy people, they destroy patterns. Weapons that don't leave bodies behind, they leave legacies. So what does this mean for you? It means your next encounter with disrespect could be more than a test. It could be a turning point. It means the person mocking you, talking down to you, mistreating you, might just be the setup for your spiritual promotion. It means if you can stay rooted in love, in discipline, in truth, without losing your center, you just might unlock something that changes everything. Because what Marvin teaches us, more than anything, is this. How you respond to the fire determines whether you burn or whether you shine. And maybe, just maybe, the entire world is waiting to see you shine. So the next time life gets loud, the next time someone tries to steal your peace, the next time your worth is questioned or your dignity attacked, don't match the noise. Match heaven. Respond not with the energy you received, but with the energy you carry inside. The energy of honor, the energy of restraint, the energy of divine identity. Because when you do, you become like Marvin, a vessel of something greater, a living reminder that goodness is still real, a quiet warrior who wins not by shouting, but by standing tall in silence. And in that silence, miracles move.